Welcome to Blinds Abroad.
Hey everyone, welcome to Blinds Abroad Travel. Today I'm really excited about this episode because Cleaves is going to take over and tell us all about what it was like when he summited to Mount Everest Base Camp. Did I just say
They
summited?
summited to base camp. Yeah, to base camp. I definitely didn't summit Everest. So yeah, yeah. I don't really like talking about myself too much, but this is quite a big thing for me. So last year, an old friend from Seesaw Podcast, Selena P, co-host, dropped a message into our chat with regards to a trip to Mount Everest Base Camp in Nepal. And they were taking visually impaired and blind people. And so I signed myself up for it. I wasn't
Who?
sure at first. It did take me a while to sort of manar about it because it was with a company called Venture Force, who'd done an expedition like this before, but it was quite pricey as well. So I had to make sure I had the money for it. And I also had none of the equipment for it either. So that was going to cost me because I'd never really done anything like this before. It's not something that I would normally do. I'm not the most trekky or walky kind of person. My hobbies are usually sort of music and going out as opposed to more active trekking, shall we say. But signed up, we went on a training weekend in Wales, which not quite the same as Everest, I can assure you. The weather was much worse in Wales than it was at Everest, but it was more to see whether the people that were going were fit and able for Everest, and that's a mixture of both fully sighted people and visually impaired people as well, and whether the fully sighted people would be able to sort of help out with the leaders of the adventure force in terms of helping the visually impaired and blind people get around up and down the mountains across pretty rough terrain, to be fair. So that all in hand, come November 2025, I had to meet everyone down at no, in Heathrow Airport. Where did you fly to from Salford Lake?
Heathrow.
Heathrow. Yeah. So it was Heathrow. It was an early flight, so I had to take a National Express bus. Nice 4 hour bus ride down to Heathrow, again by myself. So I booked it all in advance, made everyone aware of the accessibility needs, which, to be fair, National Express were pretty poor with that. They didn't really do anything. And then when I got to the actual airport, I luckily managed to find a member of airport staff that took me from the coach station to the airport itself, where I met up with the Venture Force leaders and everyone that was going on the trip. And we all flew out, and we got to Nepal. We stayed in Kathmandu in the Kathmandu guest house for a few days. We went for some nice meals, and it was good as well because everyone on the group was starting to get along. There was a mixture of ages, um, you know, it was a very diverse group, just generally speaking. So that was good, and like with everyone getting along, it was a good mixture of people, like I say, sighted and visually impaired. So maybe a couple of days in, we flew from Kathmandu actually out to Everest, go on a really sketchy tiny plane, not much bigger than a kitchen table, and yeah, that's something. And then when you land on the airport is also kind of like sloped as well. And you get to a little tea house and got all your equipment with you. You have a big, well, what you do is so your Sherpa has a bag, and then you have like a day bag. And then maybe your day bag will contain your water, um, things like extra, I don't know, like extra t-shirts, layers, fleeces, a hat, gloves, that sort of thing. Your down jacket if you need it. But on the first day, it was actually really sunny. And in fact, a lot of days, well, yeah, probably 2/3 of the journey, I was in the t-shirt because the weather was real nice. But as we first started off, it was a lot of up and down on rocks and steps. Most of the steps aren't real steps. They're just like either bits cut out of a rock or just literally bits of rock to step up and down on. So that was a lot to get used to straight away. And our was out a little bit longer, a little bit delayed. So we had quite a walk the first day, and by the time we got into the first kind of tea house, it was starting to get dark. But it sort of got you used to it at least. Most of it's downhill the first day because you sort of drop into a valley. And then after that, the second day for me, there was a lot of uphill afterwards. Now, most of the days, as you're climbing Everest, tends to go either up and then back down into a valley and across like a little suspension bridge, basically, between two different peaks or rocks, and then back up and down. So most days you're either starting by going up or starting by going down, and then you'll be doing the opposite by the end of it. Most days going up, I find that we were climbing down into the valley and then going back up at the end after dinner. We usually had dinner in the valley, again at some tea houses along the way, and then you were climbing up at the top. When I say climbing, I mean trekking, like you're stepping up and down different rocks. Now, my vision's not great. I've only got like central vision in my right eye that's probably usable. I could probably read a phone using my right eye. Left eye is blurry shapes and colors. So my perception's pretty messed up. And I had to be guided by someone all the time just because the terrain's so bad. And you kind of come up with a system in the sense of going up or down. Maybe they'll give you like a number, like a one or a two, depending on how big the step was. Like a one down is a small step down. Uh, Four up is quite a big step up, and kind of kept to that kind of structure with the people guiding. So I had an idea of how far I was putting my leg up or down. But because you can't see the step, you're overestimating it most of the time. So whereas some people will be, they're exerting the amount of energy they need to get up one step, I'm probably lifting my leg higher than it needs to be, or in some cases not high enough, and you're like stumbling up the step, or the same with it going down. So it can be quite exhausting. And at the end of that second day, I mean, I'm relatively fit, but that second day it took a lot out of me, and once we got to the tea house, I was sick that evening. And I don't know whether it was out of exhaustion, um, but the leaders looked after me, we monitored the situation, and after that first day, I was fine. So maybe it was just getting used to it. But yeah, we carried on climbing up. There were a lot of sections that were quite tricky, particularly some of the steeper climbs. Like I say, it's hard to know how large the steps are up and down. Everything's uneven as well, which is even more difficult to keep you balanced. And that's just me. I mean, I'm partially sighted. There are other people there that what my friend Selena P would say from Seesaw was proper blind, as in they had no vision at all, or they might just have light perception. So that must have been really hard for them. But yeah, we carried on climbing up, and as you get towards the top, um, it starts to get icier. It gets colder, it gets icy, and that again makes things even harder. So towards the actual Everest Base Camp, the rocks get bigger. It's like a boulder field almost, and everything's iced over as well. So you're slipping and sliding. The rocks are hard to keep your footing on, and that was really hard. It was some of the hardest things. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done going trekking up to Everest Base Camp. But that bit at the end where you're climbing over the big boulders and it's icy and rocky, it was so hard. But I mean, I did it. I made it to Everest Base Camp eventually. And who knows, if I'm good enough, I might put some photos over the video. So for anyone watching on YouTube, they'll be able to see it. But it does just prove that someone with a visual impairment, like myself, can do something like climbing to Everest Base Camp, albeit with some help, but also people with no vision at all that have done it as well. One of my friends, Sham, she's been to Everest twice now, and she has climbed to base camp as well. And that's with, you know, I think she's got light perception. So a lot of people maybe would write that off in the sense that someone blind probably couldn't make it to Everest, but it's really not the case. If you've got the sort of determination and fitness, you can do it. And I would recommend it if you've got the money, or you can save up to do it. And there's a company out there that are willing to help people with disabilities go on a once in a lifetime trip like that, then it's well worth doing. And you just got to be in the right mindset, got to be in the right fitness shape, and you will make it.
How long did your journey take?
So it was about, I think it was 8 days up and 7 days down, something like that. But the actual day of Everest Base Camp, we left the final tea house, which was a bit of a dump. We climbed across, like I say, this sort of boulder field. We made it to base camp, and then we started walking back down that same day. So it's probably 8.5 days up and maybe 7.5 down, if you like. Something like that. Anyway, could be wrong. But you get to stay at some cool tea houses along the way. You eat a lot of dalbat and well, I mean, you can have burger and chips if you want up in the tea houses, but just don't expect the best burgers. I mean, you're halfway up a mountain. So,
You went to some coffee shops too, right?
oh, actually, do you know what? The coffee and tea houses, not great. Coffee at the coffee shops up there, surprisingly acceptable. And I even had a piece of carrot cake in one place that's actually all right. The rest of the cake was pretty terrible, but there are some places that do pretty damn good cake up there. But yeah.
What would you tell yourself when you were struggling just with maybe how tired you were or just how, I guess irritating it could be just climbing over all these rocks and everything? What would you tell yourself? How would you get through all of that?
Well, I was often annoyed at myself and questioning why I was there. I'd paid so much money to be there, something I wouldn't normally do. And I'm just like, why? Why have I done this to myself? It's stupid. So stupid. But at the same time, that's almost what drives you on. It's the fact that you've paid to be here. You've just got to keep going. It's worth it in some ways more now than when I was there. I mean, it was a great experience to be there with all those people and get to Everest Base Camp and know that you've achieved that. But coming back down and almost now when I can look back on it and think, yeah, it's horrendously hard at the same time, but like that achievement now will stay with me. And it's not something I'll ever do again, but I am immensely glad that I have done it. And I was so glad to have done it with the people that I did it with.
Awesome. Can I share my show and tell?
Yeah, what you got?
I have a rock. I don't know if you can you see it?
A rock.
A rock.
Oh yeah, okay.
Cleaves brought me back this rock.
Because I'm super cheap. Who needs to buy souvenirs when you can just pick up a piece of rock from Everest Base Camp and take it back?
And he gave it to me on the train when I first got here. It's my Everest rock. So here's something nerd about me. I do collect seashells and rocks. People just started giving me rocks from places they'd been. And so Cleves was like, here's your Everest rock. I was like, oh.
Yeah, it wasn't actually me being cheap. There was a bit of sentiment to it. But yeah. And that's Everest. If you want to know more, please just DM us. You can get us on all of the usual social links, or through YouTube, whichever you like. If you've got any questions, just hit me up. I'm Cleaves from Blind Abroad, obviously. And yeah, I've still got a lot of my Everest stuff as well. So if you want to buy some secondhand on the cheap, let me know. All right. But for now, that's Blinds Abroad Traveling.
Thanks for watching and listening to Blinds Abroad.
You can follow us on socials and YouTube at Blinds Abroad or email us at blindsabroad@gmail.com.
Join our community. Remember to like and subscribe.